Hi, everyone. Thanks for stopping by the Time We Discuss studio. Today I have Shane Ledyard here, and it's time we discuss what it's like to be a professional horseman and author. Shane, thank you so much for joining me today.
Certainly, glad to be here.
Now, Shane, you're a professional horseman and author, and when I think of a horseman, I can't help but think of the show Yellowstone. Now, looking at your website, shaneledyard.com, I realize that rounding up cattle in the Midwest isn't exactly part of your daily routine.
No.
However, I see that you're an accomplished equestrian, a trainer, judge, and author. You have a lot going on as a
Yes.
professional horseman. So that being said, tell us what's a typical day like for you? What's it like to be a professional horseman?
Probably not what a lot of people would think. And what I think people typically expect is that you get up early in the morning, you go out, you got to muck stalls, you got to take care of horses, and then you're training and you're dealing with clients. And a lot of people do it that way. But I don't do any of the day-to-day barn management. I've got a really good setup where I have a barn manager at the farm where I bring clients and she takes care of everything and she has her own staff. So I treat my business more like I'm a coach and I help people. I go to the barn in a typical day. I'll go to the barn usually in the afternoon, especially this time of year in the winter time. Summertime, it's usually in the mornings. And I teach. If I have horses in training, I'll ride. My daughter works with me, so she sets up horses and so forth. Then I deal with all my clients and get everything done that I have to get done, and then I go home. Now, and most of our horses are show horses. They do hunters and jumpers. So that requires a certain strategy, and they're all on a, program and a plan, and it's goal oriented because we horse show. They compete, a lot of them. And then it's, you hit the office, make phone calls, but I'm very particular about my days of the week. So there's certain days of the week that I do that routine, and then one day is off completely, and then I have just an office day where I really focus more on my author work. And then my author work I also do usually typically late at night.
I get the impression from what you said that you kind of started this business from the ground up. I'm assuming this wasn't like a family business. Is that correct?
No,
Okay.
no, it was not a family business. My mom was a nurse, my dad was an accountant. We always had, horses at the house, like just one or two, but we didn't do anything with them really, like trail ride and that type of thing as kids growing up. But I got into it later as a teenager. And yeah, I started in the horse transport business. When I was actually 18, I was shipping horses with my own truck and trailer. And that's because I started late in the horses, I needed a way to get in and I couldn't train yet. I really didn't ride that well. I had to work on that. So that and the judging and so forth kind of came in time.
Okay. Talk about the shipping of the horses. What kind of challenges go along with that?
The biggest challenge with shipping the horses was when you had a bad loader, the horse that didn't want to go on. Because I'm a horse trainer at heart, I liked helping horses that wouldn't get on, and that sort of became my thing. And that people would call me if they had a tough loader. I'd go and I'd help them load it. Even if I wasn't shipping it, they would just call me to come teach it how to load. The nice thing about shipping was there was a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you knew what it was. You had a job to do, you did it, and you were done. And it was, kind of clean. Where what I do now is I have to maintain client relationships all week.
When you talked about training, you talked about I think you said jumping and hunting. Is that what you said?
Yep, hunters and jumpers. Yep,
Oh, okay.
hunt seat equitation is what it's called.
Okay.
Yep.
And why or how did you get involved with just those two? Because I know you have like driving and there's dressage and all kinds of other disciplines, for lack of better
Yeah.
words.
Yeah, no, that's discipline's the word to use. The difference between riding a show hunter and doing dressage is like the difference. It's as different as baseball and soccer. Like there are horses in baseball and soccer. There's a ball involved, right? And in these two sports, there's horses involved. The people couldn't be any different. And then interdisciplines that they're just a completely different type of person.
Now, when you started doing training for those two, did you start out with one versus the other? Did you start doing training for both disciplines at the same time? What was that like?
I think I would say everybody kind of starts in the hunters and hunter seat equitation because the equitation is what makes you ride better, right? So when you're being trained, you focus on your physical body. The jumpers, so the jumpers is speed, right? So I used to do a ton more of that. I don't do much of it now. I could still school a jumper, I could still prepare one, but that again is another discipline, but that's more like NASCAR and horseback. So that's you go fast, you leave the rails up, you win the class. Hunters is more like the jumping form of the horse, the style of jump, the way the horse goes. It's more of an art. With the jumpers, once I had kids, I just kind of got away from it.
Shifting gears, you talked about your authorship. Um, how did you transition into that? What led you to start writing books?
If I kind of look back, because I saved some stuff that's important in my college and high school or whatever. I didn't even realize it, but I always liked to write. I always liked books. I always thought that was cool. I just thought it was cool. A friend of mine had a horse named Amigo. So this one gal that had a horse had a really, I was going there to do clinics, and she told me the backstory on this horse, and it was just the coolest story. I mean, it sounded like a Disney movie. One day I get this phone call that the horse had passed away, and they were crying. It was like a whole thing, and it was a like the weirdest, dumbest reason for the horse to die. It was like a tiny little splinter, and the horse was had got an infection. The horse was dead in like 3 days. It was terrible. So I went up to the farm, and I had never written or anything in my life. And this is back in like 2015. And I just said, I'm going to rewrite the end to Amigo's life. And then I get in the car, I'm like, what did I just commit to? Like, what did I just say? So then I scrambled and I'm writing down the story about the horse that I knew from start to finish, which is just it's just an amazing story about how this animal, and he had come from Europe, and um he was in really good hands, and then he got out of good hands, and then um he got in good hands again, and then he was a stallion at the time, and offspring, and then he got sort of lost his way again, and it's just back and forth about this horse. And at one point when my friend Laura had him, he had lost, like he never whinnied. It was a thing they would talk about, and it was the horse gone silent part. It was kind of like the horse had shut down. It is a story with a happy ending, but I had to write it, right? So I went through the process, and at the time it was very serendipitous. So all the right things happened, right? So I had been in a car accident, and I was going to this acupuncturist. I'm in the acupuncturist thing, and I got needles in me, and I'm sitting there, and I look over, and there's this book, and the book was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I start reading this book, and it's a really cool spiritual book. If you've ever read it, it's really neat, but it's different. I'm Christian, and for me to sort of like start to think a little bit that way, like, it was a reach for me, right? I had very traditional ways of thinking, but it's really, really cool, which can cross, religion, with his thinking. But I read this book and I was really inspired by it. It got me into this, like, just this presence, this mindset of being present. I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay present. I'm gonna do what I've got in front of me. I'm gonna start writing this book. And through Google searches and stuff, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, no idea. But what I found was I could at the time, like self-publishing, I was like, oh, I could just, it says you can self-publish and then upload on Amazon for free. I'm like, all right, well, I'll do that. I had Googled the power of now, and when I had done that, I came across another guy, James Altucher, because of that Google search. It was the power of, like, I think he actually kind of purposely wrote the power of something else. Like it was the power, whatever it was. But then I was like, oh, what's that? And then I go over and my mind shifts to this, and I buy this book because it seemed like very relevant. And anyway, the book title was Choose Yourself, but he had like the power of blah blah blah. And then I saw Choose Yourself, and I was like, Choose Yourself. So I ordered this book, and then in Choose Yourself, it literally has, like, it was one page, and it said, oh, you want to self-publish a book? Here are the 5 steps. And I just did it. And all this stuff happened within like a 2 week period, right? So then I'm like, all right, I'll just do that. So then I follow these steps, and then I write this book. And then I followed like all the steps of like uploading. And I did it cheap. I did it like, like the free cover, and it was cheesy. I published the book. I didn't really edit it that well. Like, and the way I did it, Dan, was I just got on a voice, like I got on my phone, and I talked as if I was the horse from the time he was a baby to the end of the book, right? I went through the whole thing, and I got the book written in like, It only took me like maybe 3 months. So anyway, I upload it, and then you could order author copies, which I did for my friends. It was like, oh yay, Shane, good job. Like, look what you did, like, and I was kind of like, whatever. I wasn't like, I'm an author, like it wasn't like that. But then I start getting people start buying it. And then I start getting reviews, and I'm like, oh no, because I didn't, edit it great. And a couple of people beat me up on editing. Oh, crap, I got to fix this. So I went back and fixed this. But the next thing you know, like it's selling like crazy. And I didn't do anything like keywords or anything, but the big thing is I had the word horse in the title. So people would Google horse book, right? So like it would come up. And then next thing you know, like it was like an Amazon best-selling thing. And I was like, oh crap. And then I did three edits, and then there was that. And then I finally got the thing really nice. It took me, probably a year or two to get really nice. And then it kind of became part of my brand. And then I wrote a whole separate book. The next one, Sycamore Whispers, completely different than the first one in my mind. It was still horse related, but it had nothing to do with the first. And Sycamore Whispers was way better. Like I thought, like my writing was great. It was so good. Now I'm like, now I'm a writer. Now I'm locked in. And then nobody freaking bought the book. And I was so angry at human beings for being so ignorant that they'd buy this Horse Gone Silent book, which is a good book, but to me, it wasn't written like Sycamore Whispers. I mean, for me, right? So I struggled with that. And then I tried to market and not successfully. And then one day I woke up, literally just woke up, which is how everything happens with writing for me. I don't know why, but I woke up in the morning and it was like I opened my eyes and it just hit me. I can connect those two books and make a trilogy. Like it just was just there. Like I never thought about it. I didn't wasn't going to do a third book. It just hit me, and I jumped out of bed. I ran downstairs. I outlined Brielle's promise in 15 minutes. I wrote the book in, I don't know, 2 months. Published it, rebranded everything as a trilogy, and it's been selling ever since. Like I literally don't go. I very, very rarely go a day without selling a copy of that. I loved it. I mean, I love the whole process, and I love the trilogy as a whole. It's just, I did a really nice series. I have 10 of them, 10 coloring books called Color Me Real, which is my own photography, which I make turned into line art. And then Horse Gone Silent was translated into Spanish. The last thing I did was a book called The Pony That Wouldn't Whinny, which is the children's book version of Horse Gone Silent. So, with in total, 17 published books on Amazon that we're working with. So
That's
it's fun.
that is really,
Yeah.
really cool. That's a huge accomplishment. Um, a couple, I guess it was 10 days ago, the video for Kristen Williams went live, and that was about, she was also a self-published author. It just kind of like you were saying, like this wasn't her main job. It was just something she wanted to do, and she picked up and kind of like what you were saying with your phone, only she was typing on her phone, which I thought was pretty cool when you started talking
She,
about dictating into your
mhm.
phone. But
Yeah.
that's really cool. That's it's obviously very proud of such a creative project. 17 books. That's a huge accomplishment. So before you talked briefly about education, how does your education factored into either your horseman line of work as a professional horseman or the authorship? How's that impacted either of those?
I went to community college. I went to Bucks County Community College. I did not finish. Went for small business management. Close. I think I was like 6 credits away. It helped a lot. It helped with the marketing mindset. It helped with the business mindset. I mean, that was been a long time, but I know it had an impact in the way I approached business. I have some really good professors, at the college, and that made a big difference. And then I had, and I still have it. It's actually about within arm's reach of me right now. I have a letter from a professor, like was like he had graded a paper, and he encouraged me to write. Like he said, you've got talent, keep doing this. That was really important to me. It was a big factor. So, and then ongoing education with the horses. Horses are a little bit Wild West, right? So it's still kind of Wild West in a lot of ways, but they have our governing organization, which is the United States Equestrian Federation and the United States Hunter Jumper Association, and they provide, like I'm a certified trainer, and now they have a credential, instructor credential. And I'm a licensed official with the United States Equestrian Federation. And that, in order to get those things, you need to stay educated. You need to do clinics, and I think that that education makes a huge difference. It separates me from other trainers. And in the horses, you have to keep working on your own.
Now, if someone is looking to change careers, they know nothing about horses, we'll say, and they want
Okay.
to do something that you're doing, what is a path they could follow to do something like what you were doing?
I think that the number one thing is you got to get with somebody that's really good and hope they'll mentor you. So you got to really look at working for somebody and putting several years in to become better. Because that's what happens now is there's so many people that do the horses and they're not good at it. They're just not good. I mean, I remember being that guy. I remember being young and not good at it. It would have been smarter, I think, for me to stay with somebody if I could. But I was always sort of like independent, independent thinker, a little bit arrogant. So I think somebody starting out's got to find someone they really, really believe in, someone that's proven, someone that's doing well in what they want to do. And they got to stick with them and they got to give themselves over to them. They got to give themselves over and look at it like an education. And then I would highly recommend small business management or business management of some degree.
Shane, I have just two more things. So usually when I'm talking to a person on the show, I like to ask them kind of a fun question, have nothing to do with what
Yep.
they do. So
Okay.
the question I have for you today, growing up, we all have different experiences and different opportunities. We all pick up different skills. Some of them are very useful. Some of them are pretty useless. What is one skill that it seems like everybody has, but you feel like you totally missed the boat on?
Man, that's a great question, Dan. Let me think. You know what? I suck at swimming, and that's one. I blew that swimming. I love the beach, right? I think swimming's cool. And then I go to like the campgrounds. We do a lot of camping. I go there and I try to swim, and I survive. I might be able to rescue someone in very shallow water, but yeah, no, I suck at swimming, and that's always kind of bothered me. It's a great question.
I
Maybe
could
something
I
I can work on.
I can relate to that. I actually started once a week. I go swimming. I've been doing that for about 18 months now. And the one day I was there, and the woman asked me, she's like, "Oh, do you have like are you doing this for like rehab?" And I was like, "No, I'm just a terrible swimmer."
I'm doing this for real.
The other thing I like to do when I bring a guest on, I like to give them a couple minutes to talk about something that means something to them, a personal project, a cause they believe in, or a business or something like that. So Shane, I would like to extend that courtesy. If there's something I'd like to talk about, your business, anything, the floor is yours.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Well, we talked a lot about Horse Gone Silent, about the process, but the thing about Horse Gone Silent is it's more than just a book. Um, it speaks to the heart of people that own horses or own animals, period. But it goes on a deeper level, right? So it's not like a horselandish type happy horse story. It's more of um, the way that we treat people and the long-term effects that that can have on people, not only on their heart, mental health. The whole series, Sycamore Whispers, Brielle's Promise, the whole series really talks about and addresses um, the heart of people and the differences that you can make with the right words. So, I think if anything, if people are out there and they're looking for a good read and they're looking for something that is going to maybe change your mindset a little bit and be a real good story to read, I think that would be something I'd like to share about.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure I include those links in the show description so people can easily access those books on your website.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. You bet. Shane, it's been great having you on the show and talking to us about what it's like to be a professional horseman and author. Thanks for joining us on Time We Discuss.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks for popping in the studio. My name is Dan, and this is Time We Discuss. I really enjoyed speaking with Shane, and I hope you did too. If you want to learn more about being a professional horseman and author, follow the links that are in the description. If there's a profession that you want me to cover, add a comment and I'll find that person for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That'll do it. See you next time on Time We Discuss.